Madam President, reclaiming my time, I want to thank Senator Alexander for the sincere effort we have been engaged in for some time to find common ground on this. I appreciate his constructive efforts, and I know they are continuing, and I hope we'll be able to reach an agreement on this. So thank you, Senator Alexander. Madam President, I was talking about the second part of our legislation. The first part is requiring background check standards that would actually work. And the second part is a provision that would forbid this terrible practice known as passing the trash. And when we hear the idea that a school, a principal, a superintendent, a school district would knowingly and willfully recommend for hire a known predator, it strikes us as so morally repulsive that we think, well, this couldn't really seriously happen except in the most bizarre and unusual circumstances. I wish that were the case. It's not the case. Fact is, it happens. Let me give you an example. In February, WUSA News 9 reported some really shocking news on the public school system of Montgomery County, Maryland. Since 2011, 21 Montgomery County public school workers have been investigated for child sex abuse or exploitation. The news station learned that the Montgomery County school system, quote, keeps a confidential database of personnel who didn't demonstrate, quote, inappropriate or suspicious behavior toward children, a watch list of suspected abusers who are working in area schools. And WUSA 9 learned that the school system has a record of passing the trash. For example, the elementary school teacher, Danielle Pica, abused children for 17 years. The school system knew. What did they do? The teacher was punished. Do you know what his punishment was? It was to assign him to another school. Again and again and again. 17 years of passing a known child molester from one elementary school to another. This is just appalling. This has to stop. It has to stop now. And the federal government can play a role in stopping it. And frankly, only the federal government can play a role, because sometimes the passing the trash occurs across state lines, as in the case of Jeremy Bell. Or, for example, more recently, a Las Vegas, Nevada kindergarten teacher was arrested for kidnapping a 16-year-old girl and infecting her with a sexually transmitted disease. That same teacher had molested 6 children, all 4th and 5th graders, several years before, while working as a teacher in Los Angeles, California. Now, the Los Angeles School District knew about these allegations. In fact, in 2009, the school district recommended settling a suit that alleged that the teacher had molested the children. The school district wanted to settle. The Nevada School District, when this teacher came across the state line to Nevada to work, the Nevada School District specifically asked if there had been any criminal concerns regarding the teacher, and the Los Angeles School District not only hid the truth, not only hid what they knew about this molester, but it provided 3 references for the teacher. So for those folks who suggest that the states can solve this problem on their own, I have a question. What in the world can Nevada do about the behavior that's occurring in California? Since when can the laws of one state reach into and be enforced in another state? I know the answer. It can't. It doesn't work. The only way to deal with this cross-border abuse, this horrendous abuse of kids, is with federal legislation. So, Madam President, the Toomey Mansion bill that we're going to be offering as an amendment to this underlying legislation has a simple proposition. It says if a school district wants to take federal tax dollars, it can't use that money to hire convicted sexual offenders of kids. Is that really unreasonable? Is that really too much to ask? And to accomplish that, the school district has to perform a criminal background check on those workers who have unsupervised access to children. And they must, the school district must prevent passing the trash. That has to be illegal. It has to be illegal to knowingly and willfully recommend for hire a pedophile who's molesting children. And There's no one can stand here and tell me that these protections against child sexual predators are not urgently needed, not when more than one person is being arrested every day across America for committing sexual crimes against children, and the rate at which these people are being arrested is accelerating. What's more urgent than that? Protecting Students Act has overwhelming bipartisan support. As I said earlier, the House passed this legislation unanimously. Last Congress, unanimously. How many things can pass the House unanimously? This did. And the entire Congress, House and Senate together, adopted virtually identical background check requirements be imposed for kids at daycares, younger children, by a vote of 523 to 1. So we've already vetted this. We've already been down this road. And this body and the House have expressed their support for this. I would remind my colleagues that the Protecting Students Act has been endorsed by many, many groups. I rattled off several of them: child protection groups, law enforcement groups, prosecutors, the medical professionals at the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Pennsylvania School Board Association. And the Toomey Mansion proposal is the only proposal that's endorsed by these groups. Now, we know there are going to be alternatives. There are going to be side-by-sides. Those alternatives do not have the endorsements of these organizations for reasons that we may need to elaborate on later. Finally, Madam President, 459 arrests in 1 year, more than one a day. Every single one of those represents a tragedy, a childhood that's been shattered, a family that's been torn by grief, by self-blame, by betrayal. And the numbers aren't staying the same. The numbers are growing. The problem is getting worse. How many more arrests do we need before the U.S. Senate decides it's time that we do our part to protect these kids? The children of America have waited long enough, and I say, no more waiting. No more passing child molesters into new schools so that they can find new victims. No more defenseless children like Jeremy Bell falling victim to a known child predator. No more excuses for not enacting a bill that the House of Representatives has passed unanimously just over a year ago. I urge my colleagues to support the Protecting Students from Sexual and Violent Predators Act and to vote aye when I offer it as an amendment this week. And Madam President, I ask unanimous consent to set aside the pending amendment in order to call up Amendment 2094.